I was reading a book. There was accounts from soldiers who served during World War I. And they're talking to veterans who had been there at the time. And this book goes through their experiences. And a lot of them talk about the trench warfare, which was some of the worst warfare man has ever invented. Right? When it went on for years and years and years, and these soldiers would cycle in and cycle out. Every day could have been their last. And in the midst of all of this despair, there's one common thread that you see with every single soldier that they speak to, almost every single one. And that is that they found their joy in the trenches. They have these moments where they host card games and they play around. They had a satirical newspaper that they started. And they'd make jokes about their commanding officers and what was happening in the war and each other. And one of the wildest things I read was there was a day when a cow walked into the battlefield. So it was in no man's land. It was perfectly between the Allies and the Axis. And it was like both sides wanted the cow. And then they shouted across to the Germans and they said, "We want the cow." And then the Germans were like, "No, we want the cow." And then they agreed. They said, "Okay, let's play a game. We'll throw up coins in the air and we'll try shoot them. Whoever hits the coin gets to keep the cow." And then the English soldiers shot the coin. And then the Germans were like, "Okay, you win the cow, but we'd like our coins back." And then the English soldier went, got the coins, and was like, "Oh, they're going to kill me." And then got the coins, and then gave them to the Germans, and then ran back and got in the trenches. And then everyone was like, "Fun game." It's littered with stories. There were stories of soldiers singing to each other. On evenings, randomly, they would sing across enemy lines at the other soldiers, and the other soldiers would sing back. Can you imagine that? You're in a trench. Your feet are rotting. Everyone's tired, scared. In the midst of that, all of a sudden, someone's just like, "Say you." They found their joy in the trenches. And it hit me because it made me realize they remembered what they were fighting for. They were fighting to live. They weren't fighting to fight. If you forget what you're fighting for, then there's no point in fighting. You're fighting to be joyous. You're fighting to explore yourself. You're fighting to have adventures. You're fighting to laugh. You don't just fight to fight. You're fighting to live. Just because the big is happening doesn't mean that the small stops.